Thank you.
Ms. Mack.
So I was one of the members who was not able to make it to that meeting. And I guess my question would be, and not putting on the spot, Mr. Charbonneau, but I'm just wondering if there's one or two things you could maybe share with me and others that kind of stuck out on why I'm assuming you were one who voted for it.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering if there's anything you could share, one or two things that you could share about this company that stuck out on why we should take up the recommendation.
Sure, thank you, Ms. Grant. I think what did it for me was Shawmut has identified, during their presentation, they made the committee aware that they have identified upwards of 35 to 40 Pawtucket-based businesses that could potentially participate in various stages of this project. I think the committee has been pretty outspoken about the desire to use some of these dollars when appropriate with vendors based out of Pawtucket. And for Shawmut to have gone that far into their proposal to look at who they could source right from Pawtucket, I think that number stuck out to me. You know, they are eager to do work with us. They've done a project in Providence that is a higher ed building, but in the middle of a tightly knit neighborhood. So they're familiar with traffic flows and so forth. Both presentations were well laid out and well explained. Ms. Spinola, feel free to jump in if you had a.
So Johnston is going to have how much of their school? Okay, 250 million, which is, Shawmut will not be bidding on that job. However, the other company, which is much bigger, will most likely be bidding on that job. So to ensure that we have our staff and can keep them, the members, you know, not losing your management team halfway when a bigger job comes along.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Mr. Knight?
The other company was Gilbane Construction. Gilbane is a national company also. They're bigger by far than Shawmut. And I was impressed that Shawmut mentioned 40 different companies. But the thing I want to say and why I voted no is prevailing wage. Regardless of what they have to do, they have to pay union wages. And if they don't, with the enter into the agreement with the unions, we're not going to get the preferential treatment of the union laws, and we need that. So that's why I voted no. But the committee made a recommendation, so I will support it.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Just to clarify it for a minute, the Shawmut will, if this committee awards the CMAR services for Baldwin to Shawmut, they will not be able to not follow other steps and layers that this committee approves as part of the process to build a new Baldwin. To Mr. Knight's point, we've done projects in the past where we've entered into a PLA for schools that are in tightly knit neighborhoods. And I believe at some point that's probably going to be something this committee wants to look at for the Baldwin project. And it would be this committee's direction that Shawmut would have to follow. If we adopt a PLA for Baldwin, Shawmut is bound by that. If this committee chooses not to go the PLA route for Baldwin, then Shawmut is,
Can you just elaborate on what the acronym PLA stands for?
it's a project labor agreement.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Noah?
Just one more item that they talked about, and that was internships and working with our high schools and bringing them on board. That was something that Gilbane had talked about when they were doing winters, and that was something that didn't happen. This company did say that they wanted to aggressively work with our schools and our CTE programs to bring people on at a wage to work with them and learn the construction field.
Oh, Mr. Knight, you want to respond to that, or then we'll go to Colliers?
One of the things about PLA versus a non-PLA, we still will be paying the same amount of labor costs if we don't have a PLA versus a PLA, because it's going to be a prevailing wage contract. And I don't think that's something that was recognized at the time by either vendor.
So yes, both Mr. Knight and Mr. Shaw are correct. It will be a prevailing wage job. All vendors will be required to pay prevailing wage, and that is checked by the state of Rhode Island. And Mr. Chauvin is also correct. Entering into a PLA agreement is at the direction of this committee. It's not at the direction of the construction manager. And I also wanted to add, I think it might have gotten lost. One of the things that was talked a lot about in the recommendation meeting is that the project manager for the job actually went to Baldwin and graduated from Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very clear. Mr. Knight?
Where does he live?
I'm not personally friends with him.
He doesn't live in Rhode Island.
I'm not sure.
He's going places. I see no further discussion. Ms. List, will you please, call the roll? We have a motion to, award the Baldwin CMAR to Shaw.
Mr. Noah? Yes. Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Yes, the motion carries 7-0. Mr. Charbonneau?
All right. The Budget Facility Subcommittee recommends an award for Potter Burns envelope repair general contracting services to East Coast Masonry in the amount of $2,420,600.00. This,
Second.
The motion to approve the recommendation by Ms. Manolo, it's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Mr. Charbonneau?
for clarity, we have scaffolding set up in the front of the building to address some of the water infiltration issues. That was not part of the original scope when we did the renovations of Potter. This award, if the committee votes to approve, will cover the entire envelope of the building.
That's correct. The building work will take place in two phases. The addition will be comes out this summer, and then the summer the rest of the building. This is a full replacement project to address.
Dr. Williams, Mr. Cody, at our next meeting, can we have a rundown of all of our school summer projects? Which schools are not going to be able to have students in them? Which schools, I mean, I don't know if the LED projects are. I don't think they're holding students out of those because I think my daughter's attending a program at Jenks, which has LED lighting happening. So just a rundown of what projects are happening over the summer, which schools are going to be closed over the summer, and if we can work with Colliers to get the timetable of when they're all scheduled to be finished by. Can we get that in the next meeting? Thank you. I imagine this is one of the buildings that will be closed.
All this work takes place on the outside
Oh, okay.
of the building.
For this phase of the work,
Yeah.
there will be some work done next summer to address some of the drywall that's been kind of damaged towards the water infiltration as well. But part of the de-scoping process was making sure that safety is understood as priority number one.
There's been a motion to approve the recommendation of the facilities subcommittee. Ms. Lucy, please call the roll.
Ms. Noah?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mr. Larby?
Yes.
Mr. Marino?
Yes.
Ms. Doobie?
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, it is the recommendation of the Facilities Committee that the award for the Leiningen Fire Code Upgrade General Contracting Services be awarded to ADS Construction of East Providence, Rhode Island, in the amount of $659,000.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Been a motion to approve by Ms. Grant and seconded by Mr. Larby. Any discussion? Ms. Liston, please call the roll.
Ms. Finola,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Ms. Marina,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's the recommendation of the Facility Subcommittee to award the Leiningoff Steam Lab General Contracting Services to ADS Construction of East Providence, Rhode Island, in the amount of $704,000.
Motion to approve. Second.
And a motion to approve, the Goff Steam Lab award to ADS Construction by Ms. Finola and seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? Mr. Knight?
There's $115,000 in additional scope allowance and additional conditions allowance for this work. Just so everybody knows that, so they can avoid coming to the school committee for change order costs. They've already put them in. There will be additional money that will be spent in the future.
You mean, do you want to clarify, you mean it will be spent on this
Have
project?
you ever seen anything come in under budget?
The $115,000 is actually included in that $704,000.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Charbonneau, you want to?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Mr. Marino?
So all three projects happened. You know, they are from the same firm.
Yes, there are, and Chris really can speak to it more thoroughly than I, but my understanding was it was bid out as a package.
So that is correct. We, to look for cost savings, we actually bid out each individual project individually. And then we offered, see if we could realize any cost savings that way. Also because some firms would want to bid 2 parts of the work, and maybe not bid the 3rd part. It just so happens in this case that the same vendor bid all 3 parts and was the lowest bidder. So that's why we're recommending towards that one.
Mr. Larry?
So is this to build, to repair a steam lab or to build a new one?
It's actually to completely outfit, the SEMA that's currently in place is to expand it and to outfit it to make it more of a 21st century living room.
Are we knocking through a wall? Is that, so there's 2 rooms next to each other that will become one room?
That is good.
It was, the original steam lab, or the rooms that they use for it, are 2 rooms. And as the project went through design, there was further discussion with the teachers and the administration of the school to expand the spaces to the 3rd classroom. So they used movable partitions is what's proposed to be able to make it into any configuration of those 3 rooms in a row. 1 big large room, a small room, and 2 in a small room and 1 larger room, or 3 separate rooms. So that was the total scope of it. And as the project progressed, it looked like the budget was going to be higher. So we alternated 1 of them out, a 3rd room that was added to the project. And then the final cost estimate came in, it was actually lower. Just because of the world we live in and the cost of things. So that was sort of the decision was made, but it was a deduct alternate, which we did not take, which means we're going to renovate all 3 rooms.
And is this part of the Facilities Equity Initiative?
Yes.
The Goff Steam Lab? Yes, so this is the money from the state, okay. There's been a motion, to approve, it's been seconded. Ms. Liston, please call the roll.
Ms. Finola,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Ms. Marina,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 7-0.
It is the recommendation of the Facility Subcommittee that the award for the Facility Equity Initiative, the Media Centers District-wide, and the Slater Cafe the general contracting services for those projects be awarded to Monotone Services Company in the amount of $1,534,935, which includes the base bid and alternates 1 through 5.
Second.
And a motion to approve by Ms. Larrabee, was seconded by Ms. Grant, Ms. Manolo. Any discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Knight?
I have a dumb question. What's the Slater Cafe?
So it's to provide employment.
That's the cafeteria,
Oh, okay.
it's just short.
And given a little accent too.
Yeah, same way.
It was a
that for you automatic.
bonus. Seeing no discussion on this, Ms. Lucy, please call the roll.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee, Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask that that you entertain a motion that we take the next item, both schools separately.
Second.
There's a motion to take the next item not as one item, but as two, by Ms. Manolo, and it's been seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. So we are now on recommendation to award Curtis fire prevention upgrades.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is the recommendation of the Facilities Subcommittee, the Pawtucket School Committee award general contracting services for Flora Curtis, new fire alarm and fire sprinkler project to Delta Mechanical Contractors LLC of Warwick, Rhode Island, in the amount of $708,300.
Second.
It's been a motion to approve the award of the Delta by Mr. Knight and seconded by Mr. Nola. Ms. Nola?
So is John here? He's not
Come
here.
outside, Michelle.
So, it's not fun. So I had asked at the facilities meeting if we could have an update, and I was told that once they go through all of the schools, they will be preparing. Do you want to?
Yeah, actually, over the past couple months, probably we're not talking about the update to the fire prevention or the fire security action plan that was done in 2018 with the fire marshal and Jensen Hughes as the consultant. So recently, I walked through all the buildings that remain on the plan that the issues have not been addressed at this time. And we itemized all the items that were on that original list in 2018. We're going to develop a plan to remedy the remainder of the work within the timeframes that were set out in the original plan, which I think all of it has to be done by May of 2025. So the work that was done in these two schools that we're talking about right now, Curtis and Barrier, we did walk through with Jensen and Hughes, which was, and during that week, we spent the whole entire week going through buildings. So any of the work that was mentioned in 2018, that this will resolve, will be checked off as to be completed this year when we return to the fire marshal later on this year, and then to the state fire board to ask for some time extensions on a few things due to changes that have happened in the district with the plans about last also.
And a motion to approve the award for Curtis fire prevention. Ms. Lucy, please call the roll.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Knight,
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 7-0.
All right, and the last item is the recommendation of the Facility Subcommittee is to award the Francis Barrier new fire alarm and fire sprinklers general contracting services to Delta Mechanical LLC of Warwick, Rhode Island, in the amount of $680,300.
Motion to approve.
It's been a motion approved by Mr. Nola, seconded by Mr. Knight. Any discussions?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just, again, for clarification, while it's listed as general contracting services, Delta will actually be performing the work. There may be small portions of it carpentry-wise that they sub out, but they will be actually doing the work.
Ms. Leslie, please take a roll call.
Ms. Vanella.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Knight.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Ms. Marino.
Yes.
Ms. Judy.
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Excellent work to the facilities subcommittee and Mr. Charbonneau.
Thank you.
We are on discussion items, revenue report. We have this in our docket. Ms. Manolo asked for this at the last meeting. So it's a discussion item if anyone would like to have a discussion about it. Mr. Knight.
I'll ask Ms. Devine, please answer the question I got. Wherever she is. Do we have any revenue in at all? Come in?
This is all revenue. A credit is a revenue, an accounting, a credit is a.
I understand that, but there's no actual cash coming in. I want to make that clear to everybody.
Well, cash comes into the city has the bank accounts. We don't have a bank account. The only accounts that we have, on the very last page of student activity accounts, each, school has their own checkbook. And so what this is this is all the revenue, and you can, at the end of the year, when the audit is done, all these revenues are reported in the financial statement. But all of this revenue is booked school revenue, so all the different funds, that are in front of you, they represent the local, they represent the capital, they represent, food service, athletics, and all those things. But we don't physically have cash other than student activities, which are extra.
Right. So this is, what we're actually doing is listing what we expend each month and calling it revenue instead of credits. It is credits, but that's beside the point. So it's a confusing thing to put out as a revenue to the typical person. Not everybody understands that.
Not sure, I'm sorry.
Not everybody understands that the revenue report that's listed here, okay, is actually what you're what's being paid for each of these accounts. You know, revenue means cash in to the typical person. These are listings of cash out.
Now, these are cash in, a credit in the accounting world, and I can change it so you don't see the credits, but a credit in the accounting world is revenue. So, for instance, I'll give you the Aramark scholarship. Aramark gives us $1,500 a year to 500 to 3 high school students. We received a check from them, and we deposited that check, and so we have revenue of $1,500. The reason you see zero is it hasn't been given out. It hasn't been given out to the students. I think they were just awarded probably this week, and the checks are probably being issued. Now, this doesn't have expenses on it. That would be a more complex report. I actually give credit to Jason DeForges in my office, who actually wrote this out of the system. But again, we did get a check from Aramark, and we deposit that, and then it becomes available for us to say.
And Mr. Devine, just to clarify, a lot of this we're seeing like grants as well.
Correct.
Like we're seeing like Title I grants money that comes in, Title II grant money,
Correct.
the JROTC money that comes in.
Correct.
So-
yeah, so if I could put on page 1, the general fund, the box that has, the listing with, a bunch of different, you can actually see that there are the local, that we receive from the city, revenue, tuitions that we get from other districts. Is a total year-to-date of 1.198, and we've gotten we've received checks from other districts of 69,782. So we are receiving income, like the revenue in. We deposit that into bank accounts, but the bank accounts are held by the city. When we spend the money, such as Title I, if you look at the federal grants, which is the next big block on page 1, all the sub-funds tell you all the different federal funds that we get. So we get an IDEA Part B, we get a preschool one. Those we spend, and then we ask for the reimbursement. And the way that money comes back to us is the state actually deposits through a wire into the city's checkbook, or so all of the money does fund through the city except for student activity. but we do get checks that we don't in some cases.
And Ms. Devine, can you clarify the student activities? Are we looking at PTO balances? Is that what we're looking at?
No, so what you're looking at for student activities are, so the PTO is a separate, entity from the.
We don't see that ever. That's
Right,
not,
we should not,
okay,
we should not
okay.
be involved with
That's
them.
what I was
They're not part of the federal. These are actually, and because of, a new GASB ruling, the agency funds, which is what the student activities fall under, are now have to be reported, by individual account, where before they used to just be in the back of the financial statement, lump sum total, we manually kind of, me and then what they do is they have the checkbooks, but my team actually gets the bank statements. They reconcile the bank, we check them, we visit the schools, I have somebody go out to the schools, we ensure that they have the proper invoices, but and ensure that they're spending it on students only, it's not, spent on, non-student items. And those numbers in there are, the amounts of revenue. So for instance, I'll give you Green. Green has a high amount, but they held two different fundraisers or three different fundraisers this year. That's why they had a significant amount. Some of the other schools don't do as many fundraisers. Maybe their PTOs do the fundraisers, but it's not done at the school level. So you'll see somebody like, Jenks. It looks like to date this year, I don't know what their balance is. This isn't the balance. You can see that in the financial statement, but they collected $664 this year. They may not have had a lot of fundraisers this year. And again, they could have the PTO do the fundraising.
Mr. Sherman.
Ms. Manola, thank you for this report. Ms. Devine, thank you for putting it together for us.
Jason put it together.
Jason put it together.
So I have to give credit to Jason. He's our guru on report writing on it. It's great.
So, thank you to Jason, but while you're up there, Ms. Devine, and I apologize, I didn't mention it during the recommendations from the facility committee, but both firms that interviewed with us from a CMAR perspective for Baldwin were posed the question by Ms. Finolo, why bid on this job? And both firms, and they didn't obviously present together, but both firms said Pawtucket has a well laid out history of paying timely and keeping all the funds flowing to them. So from their perspective, we are an attractive client for them because of the financial care Ms. Devine, the superintendent, and the rest of the staff take with our funds. So thank you for that, Ms. Devine.
Ms. Manola.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for this. The statement is one thing when you do your budget, but this is the actuality, and there's a lot of detail in here. You've covered your bond, you've covered the S money. You know, there's a lot of money that flows in that, you know, we should know about.
Could I ask a question? Would anyone like to see it in the opposite motion without the brackets? Because I will tell you, Jason said you think they want to see it without the brackets. I said it's on for discussion. So would anyone like to see it in positive? Because we can set it up so that the report just shows in positive. It is the receipts that come into the district, whether it be which transfer or which check.
Yeah, because it looks like a deduction.
It does. So I know that Chairman, I mentioned it, and I know I'm a accounting. So yeah, I credit. I know that that's money. So if you'd like us to do that, we can set it up so that way it comes out on the, and we'll add it to the monthly reports, just like anything else, so you can see how it changes monthly, just like the overtime. If you like it in a positive, would everyone like it in a positive role? We know it's labeled properly.
Yeah.
That's fine, as long as we know what it is.
Yeah, okay.
It doesn't change.
Thank you very much.
That was our discussion. I'll now entertain a motion to recess the executive session in accordance with provisions under Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5, job performance, character, physical or mental health for the purpose of discussing and or acting upon annual evaluation of superintendent, seal executive session minutes, adjourn executive session. There's been a motion by Ms. Manolos and seconded by Ms. Charbonneau and Ms. Marino. Any discussion? Ms. Yelsey, please call the roll. I mean, just all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are in executive session.
Did you miss us, Dimitri?
Of course I did. How you guys doing?
Yeah, no, we gotta wait for a couple.
I'm ready to sleep.
You playing out, Erin? I'm going to. Well, I just texted my dad, he says.
You gonna go play?
Yeah.
You fiddle? You
I'm
girls
gonna go chat
play?
with Mary Duffy Messier and Tim Duffy and all the people sitting at the bar from the State House. They all go. I'll sit there.
You girls play?
Alex plays at the and flutes. And Nora, piano playing. And Nora plays, mandolin. And, hopefully the flute soon because.
Mandolin and what?
Huh?
Mandolin and what?
Those are all, soon as I see him turn the corner, I'll do it.
I was telling you, that water out of that dispenser, it's like the best water you've ever had.
Yeah, I tried it. Ice cold and I mean, it's delicious.
Audible water coolers.
Say thank you, Aaron.
Yeah.
Joe, you good with me gabbling? You want me to wait? Okay, I will. We'll reconvene in open session at 8:30. Ms. Lucy, please take roll call.
Ms. Finello?
Here.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Here.
Ms. Grant?
Here.
Mr. Knight?
Here.
Mr. Larrabee?
Yeah.
Mr. Marino?
Here.
Ms. Doobie?
Here. Ms. Lucy, please report out the votes of 5:26:22 executive session.
The committee voted unanimously to seal the executive session minutes and to adjourn the executive session.
Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
Motion adjourned by Ms. Grant and seconded by Mr. Marino. Mr. Lottie, any session? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're adjourned at 8:30.